starting to believe that Lincoln Riley has just been disguised under great quarterbacks and great quarterback play. I know that sounds to a lot of people very baffling to even say that, because as you mentioned earlier, premier play calling. But at the end of the day, we have a good quarterback with Miller Moss. I'm not saying Miller Moss is an issue, no. But at the end of the day, I believe the play calling by Lincoln Riley and his time management. When I go back and I think about Caleb Williams last year and the year before that, he's the one that saved the team. He's the one that saved Lincoln in many games. Mm-hmm. So once again, I'm starting to believe that Lincoln Riley may be disguised by great quarterback play because he's a Heisman winner. And I'm not going to say that he may never win a national championship, but it's looking very difficult by the way I'm seeing here. And that's really it. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, no, that's really a great point. I've heard people say that same thing. I got to be honest, that's floated past my head a couple of times when I've thought about the situation. But here's some things you have to do. Those play callers, right? Those quarterbacks are coming to play for Lincoln Riley. So Lincoln Riley is going to get those quarterbacks. Okay. Whatever your thoughts are on Miller Moss, Jayden Mayava this year, what we have, what we don't have, there have been some misses. I mean, let's face it. Miller was not Riley's quarterback. He inherited Miller. He brought Jayden Mayava in late as an ad when they didn't think they would need it to go after Will Howard. So they brought Mayava in as a secondary backup, so that we're not going the season without a viable backup. Okay, so that's what you have with the quarterback play. The issue I have is I think we're all happy with D'Anton Lynn. And quite frankly, I'm going to say this, you guys. Tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. You don't think D'Anton Lynn can get it done? You think that he's a fraud? You think the defense is bad? Because I will say to you, it looks like the defense has played. But here's one thing you got to remember. These teams are getting more and more film on D'Anton Lynn as well. So you're going to see more holes in the defense, and you're going to see them scheme a little bit differently. But I think that the defense overall has done well. And if you look at how USC plays early in games, right, lately, and then late in games previously, you do see it. But then you have to ask yourselves, do we have the roster? It's hard to know if it's, Preston, it's hard to tell if it's the roster or the players. You know why? Because we don't know what this roster is. I mean, if you look at the 247s of the world and all the ratings on talent, etc., USC, maybe we're believing the hype too much in the spring. Maybe, when you're reading the recruiting sites and they're pumping up our team and stuff like that, maybe we need to pull back and know the reality is maybe this team just isn't that talented. So then they actually close to the question. Is it the coaching? It's games like this, Preston, that made me question, well, okay, but Minnesota doesn't have great talent. Mm-hmm. It's like that. Great talent. So you keep going back and forth. What is it? Do we have a good team or not?
Yeah, in college football, right? Even if you're talking about a Nick Saban, you got to have players, man. No coaching is going to get you a national championship. You got to have talented players on the field to win anything. So you are correct at that aspect. And then, hey, look at USC, the recruiting classes the last, 5 years, it hasn't really been on that elite level. So you may be on, people may be on to something with that, 100%.
Yeah. Hey, so what's going on?
Yeah. I've been a Trojan fan for a minute, about 40-some years. You know what? I really think it's just, it's the talent on defense. I think it's the talent on defense. And we got some play calling a little bit on defense, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, what about the offensive line, though, man? You know what I mean? The reason why this offense isn't working, and really, I think our defense. Here's my take, and I'll be honest. Yes, there's some issues on defense, right, with depth, etc. Those guys are balling and battling. I'm not as much on them. This offensive line, since Riley inherited the offensive line from Helton, by the way, really, Clay McGuire, who's now up at Washington State, that came down from I don't know where, maybe he came from Washington State. I can't remember where Clay McGuire came from. I think he did. He got that offensive line playing well together, and you had a bunch of veteran linemen playing very well together in that 22 season, which won 11 games, which allowed Caleb Williams to win the Heisman Trophy. Outside of that year, these past 2 years have been abysmal at the offensive line position. And honestly, I really thought that had been fixed. You know, it just shows you how quickly things can go off the rails when you look at your predictions preseason. But the offensive line has deep issues, and it's not just one or two guys.
And the issues got worse. And the issues got worse today too. With you had the Prangley little injury at the beginning, and then you had Mason Murphy go out for a little bit. Like, who knows what that's going to tell for the future?
Well, I mean, Prangley came back, right? I think he finished.
He did come back. He did come back. Yeah. He did come back.
But I believe I held my breath. There's a. Yeah, caller.
Yeah, I agree on that. But you're right about the miss tackling and the talent level too. I don't think we recruited well.
We haven't
at this time. We haven't recruited well in the last couple of years. Even with Caleb Williams being great and the running game we had, we still had defensive problems. It's just our defensive tackling. Tackling is not good on this team. And late in the games. And that's what's killing me. We get a 2-touchdown lead and we lose it. That against Maryland, that's not good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm waiting for people to say we're one play away. You know, if Kamari Ramsey makes that tackle, or if we block the field goal, you know, if a field goal doesn't get blocked, we win. Or I mean, there's always one play away stuff, but you know, we can hem and haw all of it. You're right. Late in the game, poor tackling. Yeah. That's because we're bringing in guys that, how am I going to say this the right way? That probably are not going to get us to win at a high level. I'll say it that way. We got guys playing that are probably not going to allow us to play at a high level. And the guys that are out there are gassed because they're getting way too many reps because we don't have the depth in order to give them a break during the game.
Yeah, I agree. We missed that number 18. The
oh, yeah.
We missed him a lot.
Eric Gentry.
I mean, big time. Oh, my God.
His ability to get pressure. His ability to get pressure on the defense, on the quarterback is absolutely missed. His sideline play has been absolutely missed. He's a difference maker, man. He really is. Yeah, you remove.
And you know, I'm gonna say one more thing. Like last game against Penn State, we didn't use our timeouts good at all last week. I mean, against Penn State, I didn't understand why we didn't use the timeouts better. And then you had a rush throw, ball through the interception at one time. It's just that we rushed time. We had three timeouts and we didn't use them. So I'm thinking, I'm not saying the coach is bad, but it's his fault too. The offensive coach, whoever's calling the plays. Come on, we got to do better.
I think the entire team has to do better. Losing to Minnesota, losing to Maryland, not good enough at USC. It's absolutely not the USC standard, without a doubt. Great call. Thank you so much.
Right. I thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Great call. Hope you call back again.
Yeah. Hey, this is John from San Diego.
Hey, John. Thanks for calling in. How you doing?
Doing all right. Been impressed with you guys. Have been making great points throughout. So great show. But I got a few questions for you. First, a lot of people are calling for Lincoln Riley's firing, but he has a 10-year, $110 million contract. So aren't we financially handcuffed to him? And then number two, Lincoln Riley's no offensive idiot, so he knows that an O-line is key to all of his offensive playbook. Why don't we have a better O-line?
They're desperately trying to get, so as we move closer and closer to an NFL model, look, the programs like Ohio State, actually Ohio State was kind of late to the game, but they're there now without a doubt. This game is different. And USC is always slow to react to this stuff. And we got our asses kicked in NIL. And I don't know how close we hear we're not, whatever. It's clearly that USC wants to get somebody as in like the kind of like a general manager, right? Somebody's going to manage the roster, because now it's with all the NIL, it's not like it used to be with recruiting staff. You had a recruiting coordinator, you had guys that gave you your letters of intent, etc. Now it's like free agency, 24 hours a day. You need someone that's your general manager that's going to be on top of your roster and build your roster. You look at the programs, you look at Oregon. One thing they do really, really well is they have professionals who have been in Nike that are handling their NIL and handling their rosters. And they're doing it at such a high level. You have the deep pockets of other schools like,
and they've got Phil Knight's checkbook.
That's what I say. And you have deep pockets, but then you also have, you have Columbus, Ohio, which is Ohio State, which is the entire city. And it's not like Tuscaloosa or some smaller, school, right? It's not like Lubbock, Texas. It's a pretty good sized city. Right. And that entire city is behind Ohio State. I mean, pretty much the whole state mostly is behind Ohio State. And they have a lot of money to do it. USC has a lot of money, but I don't think they're spending it correctly. I think like USC always does. They got a lot of stuff and they just kind of hang back and say, well, we're USC, we'll figure it out. And they have not been progressive or keeping up enough with what these other programs are doing, and they're getting their hat handed to them. Preston, I know what your thoughts on this are, but they need to get it. Sorry, it's just short story. Sorry, I should have said at the beginning. They need a general manager. They need to spend the money in a correct way. They got to look at what these other programs are doing and drop your ego and say, let's model our stuff after Oregon and Ohio State. Will you be able to replicate it? No, but model what you're doing after what they're doing and do what you can that they're doing. Preston, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, trench acquisition is definitely something that has to be changed up. A lot of head coaches, what they'll do is like, let's say you have an O-line coach, you'll trust in your O-line coach to do the recruiting and bring in the guys that he thinks can work for him, right? To be successful as a team. So maybe Riley needs to handle that personally, or he's just trusting in Henson to get it done. Regardless, there's something going on where things aren't clicking. So there may have to be a change in some aspect to, get the development right as well as the recruiting right. And then NIL is a whole nother ball game. Definitely got to get better on that front. But yeah, we're definitely behind. So hopefully we can get right.
This is a great point here by Right On, Fight On as well that you might want to think about, John. We're behind the NIL thing, but also how quickly we forget Lincoln Riley's biggest sin is the fact he brought Alice Grinch and in year 2 didn't do something about that. And now we're seeing the repercussions of it. That's true. Nobody wanted to come here on probably both sides of the ball because our offense was a literal laughing stock. And they knew that we probably weren't going to win. Yeah. And that also set USC back. So, I mean, it is what it is.
No, it's all good. First, I just want to say you guys are doing God's work. I personally, I'm sorry for all the trolls and the weirdos that are calling in and in the chat.
That's all good.
You guys deserve better than that. I was going to ask you if you thought it was coaching or conditioning, but I mean, I've been thinking, I think it's just a depth issue because you really can't condition when you don't have a legitimate backup to come in. You don't have a legitimate position battle across the board. Not having Gentry hurts, not having Bear, that really hurt. Even if he's only for run defense, even if we take him out on obvious passing situations and only play him on running downs, not having him still hurts. Anthony Lucas, that's still that hurts. So not having talent, every injury, I feel like it's more magnified because we're exposed late in games. I don't even know if it's a conditioning issue at this point. I just think it's a lack of depth issue. The one thing I really wanted to get your guys' opinion on, I'm not going to jump on the Riley hate train. I'm disappointed in the accumulation of all these one play away losses, but I don't hate Riley. My thing is, I think if you really look at his Heisman quarterbacks, which is an individual award, by the way, that's not something that you like coach up. Caleb, Jalen Hurts, like all these guys were great quarterbacks and they're pretty decent in the NFL. I think Riley's ceiling is capped at how good the quarterback is, not the other way around. I don't think that he is some quarterback whisperer. I think that he's been fortunate and had a really great collection of individual talent. And Miller Moss is just not that guy all the way. Matter of fact, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, Miller Moss wasn't even Caleb's backup. The backup transferred to Boise State. So I think if we still had the kid that transferred to Boise State, we might be singing a different tune. I don't know why he transferred. I don't know if it was NIL. I don't know if it was personality conflict.
Carter, hold on. You're throwing 100 things at us. So let's start addressing it. You're not going anywhere. We'll address them. I can't keep up with you. So you brought me thinking something really quickly here. Although the talent level isn't on the same level that USC should have the better roster, is true. There's also the question of veteran depth. And you can't really deny that. You could have role players on a team that are fifth year, seniors that have a family and a beard thicker than mine and have been playing at the school for 7 years You know, you can't discount that kind of depth too. And I think I'm really doing a disservice to some of the schools that we're playing, because I think they do have that veteran depth at really important positions. So maybe they don't have the quality of player, but when you have 19-year-olds going up against 25-year-olds, you're going to see, especially in the trenches. That's one thing. Heisman, you said, is not an individual award. Tell that to Caleb Williams last year, who wasn't even close to talking Heisman. Why? Because he didn't have the offensive line. No, you do win the Heisman, but also it's a team award, because if your team doesn't do well, you can't win the Heisman. And if you're a quarterback and you have an offensive line that can't block for you, you're not going to win the Heisman. So I kind of agree with you. And the last point about Riley, are we just going to say that he's got lucky? So he just won the lottery, that he had 5 NFL quarterbacks come and play for him? Or is it the fact that he's Lincoln Riley and he is a quarterback whisperer, and he does have a really good scheme that quarterbacks is quarterback friendly and they really enjoy to do, and that's why they come to play for Riley? And all we really need to do is get an offensive line that can protect for them, and bam, we have an electric offense. So again, I don't think it's Riley. I don't think it's the quarterback. Even Miller. I think Miller could have been an elite quarterback this year if they could have protected him. Preston, I don't know your thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, I mean, first off, in terms of like just the team, I think it's depth and lack of execution. That's where we are right now. As far as, yes, like just like you said, the upperclassmen, you know, in terms of talent wise, and Riley with the quarterbacks, they need each other. But I do think he's been fortunate to, you know, get some of those guys and bring some of those guys in. But I think Riley is also an elite quarterback coach as well. That's why he was able to get those guys. So, yeah.
And then Malachi Nelson, you brought him up. He was the reason why he left is because Miller was going to be the starter ahead of him. So that's why he didn't go to Boise State, because he thought he was going to be a starter over Caleb. He wanted to be guaranteed that he was the backup, and Riley didn't do that. So he left for Boise State. And someone brought up the point, he's not even starting for Boise State. And I will say this, I saw him in high school. He was never the same quarterback from Los Alamitos that he was after he got hurt. He just wasn't. And then he hasn't been the same quarterback since then. So